He suddenly left the United States. Days later, he was found dead in Paris. This is the story of Todd Garland, a man from Kentucky whose unexpected journey overseas ended in tragedy. The news sent a shockwave through his small community and sparked a complex international investigation that continues to this day. Why did Todd Garland travel so abruptly to France? What happened in the crucial hours and days after he landed in the City of Light? As investigators in two countries carefully piece together the evidence, many fundamental questions remain unanswered. Friends, family, a concerned public searching for clarity in a case shrouded in mystery. The sequence of events is as jarring as it is perplexing. One moment, Mr. Garland was living his life in Kentucky, working at a local bookstore, known to those around him as a familiar face in the community. The next, he was embarking on an international trip that, by all public accounts, seemed entirely out of character and unplanned. The journey itself is a blank slate in the public record. We know he departed from the United States and arrived in Paris, but his movements, his intentions, his state of mind, all await official confirmation from the authorities tasked with unraveling this puzzle. This case is not just about a tragic death. It's about the stark contrast between a seemingly ordinary life and an extraordinary, fatal final chapter. To understand the mystery of Todd Garland's death in Paris, we must first look at the life he lived in Kentucky. By all public accounts, it was a life characterized by routine and quiet simplicity. A significant part of Todd Garland's daily life was his work at a local bookstore. Beyond his home and his job, Todd Garland was a known entity in his wider community, though not an overtly social one. As we assemble these pieces, the portrait of Todd Garland that emerges is one of profound regularity. His life appears on the surface as a carefully woven fabric of consistency. This makes the sudden tear, the abrupt trip to Paris, all the more jarring and inexplicable to those examining the pattern. The journey from a predictable life in Kentucky to a mysterious death in Paris began with a single, definitive break in routine. Then, without notice, he failed to appear for his scheduled shift at work. His colleagues at the bookstore were the first to sound the alarm, their calls to his phone reportedly going unanswered. It was not a gradual drift away from his responsibilities, but a sharp, clean break, as if a switch had been flipped. Investigators were able to confirm that Garland had indeed left the country. Public records and law enforcement confirmations revealed he had purchased a one-way ticket to Paris, France. We can trace his path from his Kentucky home to the nearest major international airport. This is not speculation. This is the path confirmed by the digital and financial breadcrumbs he left behind. The flight itself is a significant period in the timeline, a span of approximately 8 to 9 hours where Todd Garland was suspended between two worlds. He physically walked through the gate, found his seat, and settled in for the long flight, an act that speaks to a level of intention and purpose, and landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport, one of the world's busiest international hubs. The moment he stepped off that plane, he was on French soil, subject to French laws, and under the jurisdiction of the French police, who would later investigate his death. Investigators have certainly reviewed airport surveillance footage, leaving a gap in the timeline between his arrival and his subsequent known movements, or lack thereof, within the city of Paris. The hours immediately following Todd Garland's departure from Charles de Gaulle Airport are among the most critical and least understood periods in this case. Did he have a hotel reservation? As of now, officials have not publicly confirmed whether Garland had any accommodations booked in Paris. Upon arriving in a new country, a traveler's first instinct is often to connect to Wi-Fi. Did Todd Garland's phone connect to any public networks? It was during this time that the events that would ultimately lead to his death were set in motion. The silent void in Todd Garland's timeline was tragically filled several days later. French authorities made a grim discovery. Todd Garland was dead. This announcement transformed the case from a puzzling disappearance into a tragedy. The missing person investigation was now officially a death investigation. The local bookstore where he worked became a site of mourning, and those who knew him grappled with the shocking finality of the announcement. According to the Paris Police Prefecture, his body was discovered in a non-touristic residential area on the outskirts of the city. This detail is significant. It suggests that Garland had moved away from the well-trodden paths of the city center. They would have cordoned off the area, conducting a meticulous forensic search for any evidence left at the scene. This would include searching for his personal belongings. For investigators, the question is stark. What was a man from a small town in Kentucky doing in this specific obscure corner of the Parisian suburbs on the day that he died? Following the discovery of the body, the most pressing question for both investigators and the public became the cause of his death. How did he die? Forensic toxicology reports, which test for substances in the body, can take weeks or even months to complete and analyze thoroughly. As of the latest public statements, the official cause of death has not been released by French authorities. This silence is not unusual in a complex investigation. Without this central piece of information, it is impossible to know whether police are searching for a killer, investigating a tragic accident, or closing the case as a death by natural causes. With Todd Garland's death confirmed on French soil, the investigation formally became a complex, international effort led by the French National Police. In France, the investigative process is governed by the principle of le secret de l'instruction, or the secrecy of the investigation. The FBI's legal attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Paris acts as the primary bridge between these two agencies. The investigation is proceeding on two parallel tracks, trying to answer the question, why did he leave? And awaiting the final autopsy report to answer the question, what happened to him when he arrived? A major focus of the current investigation is the forensic analysis of these devices. These digital artifacts could hold the key to his state of mind. The search history on his computer, for instance, could reveal whether he had been researching Paris. However, this digital investigation is fraught with challenges. If Garland used encrypted messaging apps, retrieving those conversations can be nearly impossible. Until officials release more information, the contents of Todd Garland's digital world remain another unanswered question, a locked black box at the heart of the investigation. As the investigation continues, it is helpful to take stock of what has been officially confirmed versus what remains a mystery. We know he broke his routine. We know he arrived at Charles de Gaulle Airport. However, the list of what remains unknown is substantially longer and more significant. The fundamental question of why, his motive for the trip, is completely unanswered. The case currently exists as a collection of established facts that lead to a wall of unanswered questions. The tragic case of Todd Garland serves as a powerful and somber reminder of the hidden complexities that can lie beneath the surface of an ordinary life. This jarring disconnect between the life he lived and the death he met is what continues to resonate, leaving a profound sense of bewilderment. As investigators in France continue their work, many questions remain unanswered.